Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the AIM Surplus slide and ported barrel combo. But before we get into the video, if you want to help out the channel, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, as all that sort of stuff is free and does help me out quite a bit. Also, go ahead and comment literally anything down below. On top of that, there's my website, Focus Shooting LLC, where theoretically something is in stock. And there's also my Subscribe Star, which is basically just a pro to a Patreon. Now, with all that out of the way, full disclosure on the AIM Surplus slide and ported barrel combo is that I paid full retail price for this. I have had absolutely no communication with AIM Surplus. I don't have a relationship with AIM Surplus whatsoever. I have bought a lot of product from them over the years, and in general, I have been quite happy with it. But again, there's been no communication or working together whatsoever on putting out this video. Merely I thought it was a very cool idea and a very inexpensive one at that, and would make for a very cool video. So getting into specifics, we'll go ahead and start with the slide itself. Now this is sitting on my Glock 17 Gen 3 frame because this is a Gen 3 upper or a Gen 1 through 4 compatible upper or slide on it. The slide internally is cut to OEM Glock specifications. So on the inside, it's going to be identical to Glock's. In fact, all of the internals on the upper on the slide are OEM Glock internals. So a full power sear spring, extractor, plunger, all that sort of stuff, recoil spring is all stock Glock stuff. The slide itself is in this nice black DLC coating, which actually has held up fairly well through some fairly aggressive use and holster wear, which we'll get into later. It is a black DLC cut from 416 stainless steel. Most notably on the slide, we do of course have a top window cut for the ports on the barrel itself. It is a fairly long cut and wide cut, so in theory it would be compatible with other ported barrels as well, though again that's going to depend on the barrel itself. It does have front and rear serrations that are cut very nicely. They're not overly aggressive, but they are definitely grippy and easy to use even with gloves. And of course, on the back, it is cut for, in this instance, an RMR. I do not have an RMR on here. This is actually the brand new Viridian RFX 35. It is a very large green dot. It is unreleased as of yet. And if you like big green dots, it's just fine. The sight cuts are for standard Glock sights. So internally, it is the same dimensions as a standard Glock slide. Externally, though, you do not have quite as much radiusing here on the sides, which is going to come into play and affect your holster compatibility. I have another slide here as well for my Glock 17. This one here is from Tribe Defensive. This one here has its own set of issues. This one here has a Sig Romeo 1 with the steel shield on it. This one here has much more aggressive radiusing and chamfering here on the sides though, which makes it play a lot better with more holsters, though again, we will get into holster compatibility on this guy in just a minute. So overall, the slide is very simplistic. It has a very good fit to the frame itself, if you will. So as far as fit and finish goes, it's actually quite good, especially for the money. Now these run usually, if you can find them in stock, for about $140-ish, 150 bucks. And the barrel, which we might as well get to right now, the barrels go for about 60 bucks. So that means that you have a total combo of a top cut slide with forward and rear serrations, plus an RMR cut, plus a ported barrel for 200 bucks, which is a pretty decent combo. A while ago, I reviewed the Bear Creek Arsenal barrel, which was a threaded barrel with a comp. And when we get into the recoil comparison, this does perform very, very well. And that combo was about 120 bucks, but again, that's going to depend on the barrel and comp you decide to go with. Now, getting into the barrel itself, it is a standard Glock profile, so it is just a carbon copy of a Glock barrel. It is a drop-in replacement. There's no machining needed to be done whatsoever. This one here is also made out of 416R stainless steel, and it has, I believe, the standard 1 in 14 twist, 1 in 10 twist. I don't remember exactly what the twist is. It is a standard 4.5-inch length barrel. However, at about the 2.5-inch mark is where your ports start. So that is where you're going to start losing velocity on the 9mm projectile. You do have 2 rows of 4 ports each on top, and they are very, very effective. Dropped the first one a little less, but other than that. Now, as you guys can probably tell on camera, it does get dirty quite quickly. I've actually cleaned this several times since I've had it. but by virtue of having ports on the top of the barrel, it kind of just dumps a lot of that powder, unburnt powder and debris on the top of your barrel, and by virtue the slide as well. Not a big deal, just something to mention. Now at the end, it does have an 11-degree target crown, which is very nicely recessed into the barrel, meaning that if you were to, you know, slam this up against something or drop it barrel first, hopefully you're not damaging the ends of the lands and grooves and degrading your accuracy. When we get into accuracy on the barrel and slide combo, I didn't do any like crazy 25-yard groupings with it or anything. At about 10 yards, I was able to make groups of about 2.5 inches, 5-round groups if I was doing my part. I am by no means an excellent handgun shooter. That being said, I was able to hit a reduced size man target, an 11.5 by 20 at 120 yards fairly consistently, just with my own skills offhand. So as far as accuracy goes, I'm not going to claim it's any sort of match barrel or anything, but it is definitely more than acceptable for 99.9% of people. Maybe if you are a ultra competitive shooter, maybe the accuracy would be slightly lacking, but for most people, the mechanical accuracy of the system is still going to be far greater than what they can achieve naturally. So the material choice and the machining quality is adequate, especially for the price point. It's all good. There's no sharp edges anywhere. The slide cuts forward and back do work quite well. The slide geometry is very simple. Much more expensive slides are going to have a lot more machining work done to them, which is of course going to increase the cost. The ports on the barrel are very simple. The overall design is incredibly simple, which again helps to keep the cost down. So this isn't going to be, you know, super flashy like some of your other more expensive slides are going to be. But as far as function goes, when we talk about actual shooting performance, it performs very, very well. This shoots the flattest out of any handgun that I have ever shot, and this is the only ported handgun that I have shot, though I have shot several comped guns, and this shoots better than all of them. In terms of its raw flatness and return to zero, it barely moves. Now, that in combination with the RFX 35 on the Viridian Optic here, with the very tall window that it has, means that the dot never even gets close to leaving the window. So as soon as you pull up on target, and you can just pull the trigger as fast as you want, and that dot is just going to very nicely bounce up and down on the target, and most people are not going to be able to outrun that. Now, as far as the shooting characteristics of this gun goes, it's excellent. It's the best out of any handgun that I have shot in terms of its recoil control and how much I'm able to focus on the trigger pull, which is more important than the recoil control for putting accurate shots. So the more of my ability that I'm able to focus into sight alignment, dot placement, and trigger pull, and less on controlling the recoil, the better for me personally. So I do actually tend to be a little bit more accurate with comped or ported guns than I do with just standard guns, because of course I don't have to focus on that recoil control. Now that being said, this setup is far more capable than I am. If you were able to give this to a more competent, a truly competent handgun shooter, then they would be able to achieve far greater things than I would be able to with this handgun. Now, for me personally, the limiting factor in this setup is actually the trigger. While it does have a very nice solid brass trigger shoe, which was actually sent to me by a viewer, so thank you, sir, for that. It is a very, very nice trigger shoe. It is the stock Glock weight of about 6 to 7 pounds with the stock disconnector, stock sear spring, because I don't really like messing with sear springs all that much. So it still pulls at like 6, 7 pounds with that kind of creepy rolling brake. So the limiting factor in this setup for me is the trigger, but if you gave it to a better shooter, they could of course achieve better things. Now, another reason that I wanted to check out this slide and barrel combo was I was actually sent out a couple different holsters, the Safariland 6384 RDS and the Alien Gear Rapid Force, their new holster. Now, unfortunately, both of these holster designs are designed in such a way that they do not allow you to use most comps on the market. So my threaded barrel plus comp does not fit in either of these holsters, and I still wanted that enhanced shooting performance, if you will, that you get from having a comped gun. And the only way to do that while testing out these two holsters is to go with a ported barrel. Now, while the ported barrel does solve the problem of not being able to use a comp with these holsters, the slide actually does add a little bit of a complication. Now, you don't have to use this slide. There are other slides, other aftermarket slides. Like I said, the Tribe Defensive which is actually compatible with this barrel. You can just swap it in there and the ports actually line up just fine. However, that is going to depend on your slide that you want to use. So you don't have to use the AIM Surplus Sauce slide, but the AIM Surplus slide does have a little bit of fitment issues just by virtue of it being very, very blocky with very small chamfers and very little radiusing on the corners. Now, in the Alien gear, the new Rapid Force holster, after a couple thousand draws at this point, the fit is good. It requires a little bit of force to get it in, but again, at this point, several thousand draws, it's broken in quite nicely. There is still some resistance when pulling it out. Not a bad thing by any means, but there is still some resistance. The Safariland, on the other hand, has a bit of a tighter fit, if you will. Now, when I'm drawing from the holster, it's actually not that bad. If you use a good amount of force and you draw it out quickly like you should, it comes out just fine. The reholstering is, though, a little bit subpar. So if you watch some of the intro footage, depending on what holster I'm using at the time, I've used this handgun with this barrel, with this barrel and slide combo in both of these holsters quite a bit. And it fits very nicely now in the Alien gear, and it's still going to take a couple thousand more draws to loosen up in the Safariland. Now, that just means that the Safariland is going to have a tighter fit, which is going to be a good or bad thing depending on your circumstance, and the Alien gear is going to have a little bit of a looser fit. We are actually eventually going to be doing a video on both of these guys separately, and then we'll do a comparison video, but that's going to be in the future. So, as of right now, the slide can introduce some issues with holster compatibility. It is, again, going to depend on your holster. And again, you can also just use a different aftermarket slide. So you can pick up the barrel for 60 bucks and then go with somebody else's slide that has a generous top cut, and you're going to be able to make it work. Now, the benefit of this slide for me as well is that it uses the more standard RMR cut. There really isn't a standard cut, but more RMR style optics are what I personally like to run, Hollow Sun, so on and so forth, that are going to provide a huge amount of performance at a very, very good value. Now, as I've already mentioned, the shooting performance of the barrel and slide combo is excellent. The shooting dynamics, the recoil mitigation, the recoil elimination is very good. This is the flattest handgun that I have shot to date. So again, the shooting performance is very, very good. Now, when we talk about reliability, comps and ported barrels can introduce some reliability issues with certain types of ammunitions. I have had at this point, at about 750 rounds currently, I've had 3 failures to eject with steel case ammunition. Yeah, that could be due to a couple things. It could be due that the chamber on this gun is a little stickier. It's a little tighter than it needs to be, so I could probably polish that up a little bit and it might resolve the issue. Or it could just be still a break-in period, so that might just go away after, say, 1,000, 2,000 rounds or so. But again, that's with steel case ammunition, so I'm not going to hold that against the gun too much. I have not had a single issue or bobble with brass cased ammunition, but again, there have been, I believe, 3 failures to eject with steel cased ammunition. Now, in general, there's going to be a reliability decrease when you switch to a comped gun or to a ported gun over just a standard barrel and slide combination as it was intended to run from the factory. But depending on what ammunition, depending on your specific gun, spring setup, all that sort of stuff, you can fine-tune it to be very, very accurate with whatever specific ammunition that you want it to be. Personally, I don't have a problem carrying this gun because I use high-quality brass case ammunition when I'm carrying the gun. When I'm shooting it using cheap ammunition, if I have a failure to eject every couple hundred rounds, not the biggest deal for me. That is a slight concern, but with crappy steel case ammunition, I'm not too concerned because I'm not going to be carrying that ammunition anyways, but it is very cheap and very efficient for training purposes. Now, that trade-off between reliability and shooting performance is going to be, worth it or not worth it, depending on who you are and in what situation you're in. So you're going to have to make that call, whether that reduced reliability, even if it's a very slight amount, that reduced reliability is worth it for that enhanced shooting performance. For me personally, the way that it shoots is excellent, and so I do prefer that. And again, with high quality ammunition, I don't have a problem running it, and if I'm just training with it, I don't care if I have a bobble every now and again. Gets your malfunction training in there, I suppose. But again, that is going to be a personal choice. Now, another downside of having a ported barrel versus a comped barrel is that a ported barrel, you start to lose some of that energy right at the first port, because again, some of that gas is getting bled off instead of pushing the projectile all the way out. It is actually, some of that pressure is getting bled off through the ports on top. Now, it's really going to vary between barrel to barrel, but usually it's between 5 and 15 or 20% less velocity. Now with 9mm, you're really still only punching holes. And so what you want to do is figure out a load that works well for the velocity that you're getting out of your ported barrel. So maybe instead of running like a 135 or a 124 hollow point, maybe run a 115 hollow point to still keep your velocity up, because you are going to lose some velocity. From what I've seen again online, it's going to vary between how they're ported and where the ports start. How big are the ports is going to determine how much velocity you lose. I don't know how much you lose off of the aim surplus, as I don't have a chronograph to actually figure out what velocities I'm getting, but you are going to be losing some velocity. Now, if you're just shooting competition, you don't really care. If you're using this as a concealed carry gun and you're using hollow points that require expansion to enhance their performance, then you're definitely going to be caring about the velocity that you're getting. So for instance, this 4.5 inch barrel might only be getting 3.5 inches of velocity out of it. So you might think you're getting 1200 FPS out of your certain projectile, when in reality you're only getting 1050, which can greatly change how that bullet performs in soft tissue. So again, depending on your application, these are all things to consider. Now, a couple very minor downsides to note really quickly is you are going to be getting a little bit more flash off of it. It's not that much more. Again, we're only talking about a 4.5 inch barrel anyway, so it's not like there's a lot of flash reduction going on to begin with, but you are going to be getting a little bit more flash and a little bit more smoke on it. Now, at this point, at about 750 rounds on this barrel slide combo with this red dot, or green dot in this case, of course, you really aren't going to notice any smoking of the lens. For instance, the Smith & Wesson MP 2.0 has a witness hole right in the chamber, and that smokes the lens at about 200 rounds. At about 750 rounds, it's maybe a little bit hazy, but honestly not much different than actually just shooting a gun, an uncomped or an unported gun for about the same amount of ammunition. So for some people and applications, that enhanced shooting performance is going to be totally worth it, and for others, it's not. It's really going to depend on, again, what you want to do with the handgun. So what I can say definitively is that the slide and ported barrel combo is an excellent shooter, and on top of that, it is an excellent value. I don't know of a cheaper ported barrel slide combo, and again, the performance is excellent. The reliability is going to be a little bit reduced in certain circumstances, or at least mine has been a little bit. Your mileage probably will vary on that regard. No, it's not the nicest setup on the market. The machining is very simple, which again helps to keep the cost down. It's not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing, and it can introduce some issues with holster compatibility. Overall, though, in my opinion and experience, for that enhanced shooting performance, for me as a range gun and an occasional EDC gun, it is very worth it. For you, however, it may not be. So with all of that out of the way, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think of the ported barrel and slide combo from Aim Surplus. If there's another combo out there I should check out, a different ported barrel, so on and so forth. And with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you once again for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.